Hi, I'm James, and this is my take on reality. In this episode, we're going to be talking about a series that's on TLC called Seeking Sister Wives. Currently, they're on season 4, and we're going to talk about the wonderful family of the Merrifields. Let's get it. Now, what's the family makeup? Right now, you have the father, which is Garrick. You have the wife / ex-wife, Danielle. You have their 2 children, who are 10 and 11. And you have the sister wife, who is Garrick's fiance. Currently, she lives in Brazil, and her name is Roberta. They call her Bert. Garrick and Danielle had been married for about 13 years. When they first started dating, Garrick was dating Danielle's best friend. Now, that should be a red flag to anybody. If you start dating somebody and they already have a girlfriend, or especially if that person is your friend, you know, how you get your man is how you're going to lose your man. So they started dating, they got married, and they've been married now for about 13 years. Now, about 11 years into the marriage, Garrick came to her and said that God had inspired them to become polygamists. Now, of course, Danielle confessed that she struggled with this whole idea of polygamy at first. There are certain instincts that we as human beings have developed and cultivated throughout our evolution. Some of them are jealousy, envy, fear. You know, these things, if tempered the right, can motivate you, or they can save your life. Like, for instance, if you go to a shady pier in Mexico and you see a guy and he's saying, "Hey, I'm going to take you out, let you swim with the fishies," 47 meters down, and he takes you out and you going to get into a shark cave, the sharks are swimming all over the place and he's just dumping buckets and buckets and buckets of chum and blood into the water, and all of a sudden these sharks the size of Buick start swimming by. And you start thinking to yourself, hey, this might not be a good idea. You know what that is? That's fear. That's fear trying to keep you alive. Trying to tell you, dummy, this is not a good idea. Maybe this isn't something we want to do. Fear can save your life. So when they start talking about, oh, you're jealous, and then there's fear, and you're just scared of what can happen, that might be God whispering to your soul that this is not a good idea, that this is not going to improve your relationship. Overall, I'm kind of annoyed at the fact that he's using his Christianity and his belief in God as a way to excuse his stupidity. In his words, he said, well, I read the Bible, and in the Bible, multiple people had multiple wives, and God favored them. In the Bible, they also stone people for adultery, but I don't see you reading that chapter, Playboy. Rock on, Garrick, rock on. And this jackass went on to say, a plural lifestyle is a great way to follow Christ and be more like him. I don't know what Bible you're reading, but my Bible don't say nothing about Jesus Christ having a wife, let alone multiple wives. What they do say in the Bible and attribute to Jesus is the golden rule. Treat others how you would want them to treat you. Would you want your daughter to be involved with this type of relationship? But would you want some man to marry your daughter, have her for 13 years, then after 11 years, tell her, hey, yeah, let's go out and find somebody else so that I can marry that person. And meanwhile, I'm going to divorce you. I'm going to take your name off of everything. And I'm going to marry that other person. Would you want your daughter to be treated that way? Treat others how you want them to treat you. Just saying. Now, the crazy thing is, Garrick met Roberta on a polygamous website. And they talked for about 3 months, where all of a sudden Garrick decided that, hey, we need to get together and meet each other. So what he did was, she couldn't get a visa to come to America. So he said, hey, let's meet halfway. We'll go to Mexico. So he packed up his family, Danielle, and their 2 kids, and met Roberta and her mom in Mexico. Now, the crazy thing is that when they got to Mexico, there's always the question in these relationships, when can you be intimate? When can you go in there and clap them cheeks? But oh, don't worry, because it's never about sex. It's all about the family. So they go down and they, being responsible, they say, you know what? Garrick, Danielle, we won't have intimacy with Roberta until we're sure that there's actually a commitment. Garrick was down there 2 days before he proposed marriage to this woman. Now, in order for them to be a family, they had to get Bert here. Now, because she's from Brazil and she didn't qualify for a tourist visa or a visitor's visa or a permanent visa, what Garrick decided to do was go down and talk to a lawyer. And the lawyer told him the easiest way to try to get her into the country is through what a lot of TLC fans are probably more familiar with the other franchise, is to get a K-1 visa or become a 90-day fiance. Now, in order for them to be able to get married, obviously Garrick and Danielle are going to have to get a divorce. Oh well, 13 years of marriage down the toilet because, hey, we got to expand our family. So the way that we're going to expand our family is we're going to cut our family in half. Over the course of the 13 years that Garrick and Danielle were married, there were a lot of struggles and a lot of hardships. So much so that Garrick had printed out divorce papers several times before he even came to Danielle and started talking about sister wives. I wonder what that's about. Let's see. A guy who says he doesn't want to do this marriage anymore and probably wants to see other people comes to you with the idea that he can date other people. And then when he finds somebody to date and he wants to get married to that person, now all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you gotta get a divorce. I don't know what could be going on. Danielle, in an attempt to try to make Garrick happy, and I guess to try to stave him off from just saying, I want a divorce, Danielle decides to go along to get along, so she just eats anything that Garrick puts in front of her. Here's the crazy thing. When they went to court, Danielle was a mess. She cried when they printed out the divorce papers. She cried when they wrote on the divorce papers and they talked about them. She cried when she signed the divorce papers. She cried when they went to the court to get the divorce. She was crying in the parking lot. She broke down crying in the court, especially when the judge asked her, is this marriage irretrievable? Is it irreconcilably broken? Is there nothing you can do? She lost her crap. The judge had to say, take her over some tissues, and she's sitting there crying and tears are flowing. And Garrick, of course he was super emotional because he thought she might mess it up. And you can see in his face that he thought she might back out. So he was scared, but he wasn't crying. He wasn't upset. Not at all. Not a stitch of tears. He didn't cry in the parking lot. He didn't cry when they got divorced. When they came back out, she's still crying in the truck about getting divorced. Garrick looked her in the face and said, oh, well, at least now we can bring Bert here. Oh, well. And that's what you want to stay with? That's what you hook your wagon to? I don't know what to tell you, homegirl. And when you talk about the people around Danielle, because that's always kind of the interesting thing about a lot of these shows, is who do these people have around them? How come nobody is pulling the coattails and warning them and saying, oh, no, don't do it? And the only people around Danielle are her parents, who you think would help, her brother, and his wife. Now, everybody is kind of tiptoeing around this whole subject and approaching it with kid gloves, because we find out that Garrick disowned his entire family because they disagreed with this whole polygamy thing. He was so vested in having a polygamous relationship that he basically lost everybody in his family. Now, as the family is tiptoeing around the whole subject of Bert and whether he should get her pregnant or whatever the case may be, Garrick revealed that if Bert's visa was denied, he was going to pack his stuff, get on a plane, and go down to Brazil without the family. How is this benefiting the family? How is this growing the family? When he presented the whole idea that he would move to Brazil because she can't come to America, he had this to say. He said, that's what you do for family. What about the family you're leaving? What about the kids you're leaving? They're your family too. What about the parents and the siblings that you lost because you were so committed to this idea that you want to have multiple wives? What about that family? See, that family's not important because the only family he's really concerned about is the future family, the family he doesn't even really have yet. And that should be a big red flag, and that should make everybody's hair stand on fire and people's eyes shoot out of their head. Danielle actually comes out of her mouth and says, because we're divorced, he could pack up everything and leave me with nothing. What? Nothing? You're saying like zero, nothing? Nothing? Why would you agree to that in your divorce decree? If we're going to get a divorce because you say you need to be free, well, guess what, baby? If you want to be free, you got to pay for the key. If you want to be able to walk them streets and not have to worry about your family or the kids or whatever, then you're going to have to put something in the bucket to make me feel comfortable with letting you go. And that's where Danielle should have came at him at. See, and this is exactly why you need to have old head friends in your life. People who are wise. People who have been around. People who have seen things. Because they'll pull your coattails and say, no. We're not doing that. We're not going to do that. Like an old head is going to tell you, oh, hold on, get something in your name, some piece of property, some bank account. If you get divorced, you don't want to just turn everything over to him because you trust him and you guys are in love. No, you get something in your name because as it turns out, we found out that the house they were living in season 3 was actually owned by the family that he doesn't really speak to anymore. And because of his polygamous relationships and ties, they put him out the house and off the property that they owned, and they were staying in a trailer. And as it turns out, all of a sudden, after they get divorced, now he's having a whole new house built for his family. Oh, you mean the family you're making with Bert? This is why you need to have that wise person, because a wise person never would have let you make that mistake, girlfriend. Never would have let you make that mistake. Like, I'm sure this was all a coincidence. Ass. Since last season, Garrick has been actually actively trying to get Bert pregnant. When he first started trying to get her pregnant, she didn't even have or wasn't approved for her K-1 visa. Now she's approved for the K-1 visa. Starting this season, she got her K-1 approval. All she has to do is tell him when to put the plane in, and she can go down and she can get her plane ticket and she can come to America and they can start their family. The crazy part is, all of a sudden her mother's sick and she can't seem to get to the lawyer's office to file paperwork, and she can't go to the embassy to get her a passport and all this other stuff. There's all these hindrances. I think Bert already has children. I think she already's got a kid and she just didn't tell you. That's what I think. A few things that annoy me with the Merrifields and their whole situation. 1, Garrick isn't a polygamist. He's a dude that lives with his ex-wife until he can get his fiance in the country. 2, they always talk about their commitment to the family as they destroy the family. He's running all over his old family to get to his next family. He's not pro-family. He's just a slow-moving deadbeat dad. And here's a big number 3. The most annoying thing with all these polygamous shows, whether it's Sister Wives, My 5 Wives, Seeking Sister Wives, whatever, is that they always try to pretend that the women are in charge, that they somehow have a say. You don't have a say. Every time Danielle questioned whether Garrick should try to get Roberta pregnant and the logic and the sense in him trying to get her pregnant, he would always refer to her as being emotional. You're being emotional about the whole situation. You're not thinking logically and rationally. I hate when guys say that to women. You're being driven by your emotions because that's how women think. The truth of the matter is that half the time the women are thinking more logically than the guys are. And I really hate that criticism, especially if your arguments in and of themselves aren't logical. See, because here's the part that's mind-blowing. This is coming from a guy who literally cries every time he talks to Roberta on the phone. He cried when he was getting ready to leave her. Okay, fine, you're leaving her. He'll call her on the phone. Hey, how you doing, Roberta? Cry and wipe his tears, and oh my God, he cries like a kid who just dropped his cake. It's ridiculous. She's the only one making sense. Why would you go down and make somebody pregnant in another country who lives in a different country when you live up here and you have your business, you have your family, you have your kids, and you have a ton of responsibility here? Why would you go make more responsibilities in another country? That doesn't make sense. Make it make sense, Garrick. If she is being emotional, that would be okay, and I would expect that. Why? Because his decisions just don't affect him, and they just don't affect her, and they just don't affect their relationship. But his decisions will ultimately affect her children. So yeah, you can get upset and be emotional about your children and your children's future and their relationship with their father and their psychological well-being. That is a time to be upset. That's a time to get upset. That's a time to get emotional. But she's not even being emotional. She's being too dang on nice. We're going to keep watching, and I'm going to keep just sending out these videos. I hope you guys are enjoying them. Please like, share, and subscribe. My name is James. This is My Take, and I'm out.
'Cause I've been living life right like